Welcome to the Economic Archer podcast. I want to remind you, please like and subscribe so that you get updates. You know when the next podcast has come out. Today's title is Hyperinflation Leads to Currency Collapse. Here's how you can protect yourself. I got to be honest with you, I'm frustrated. It's probably the most serious message that I've delivered to this point. At first, our administration, the Biden administration, told us that inflation was transitory, meaning it was only going to last for a couple of months, like no big deal. Which first I would say, total ineptness. Anybody that didn't see what was going to happen was blind. You don't shut an economy down with COVID for 6 months where we produce no goods. Our issue is a supply side issue. There's not enough goods. And when there's not as many goods and there's a lot of money chasing it, it drives prices up. The fact that they didn't know that tells you they don't know what they're doing. But they told us, and I think they told us dishonestly, that they thought it was just going to last for a short period of time. Then they tried to tell us that inflation was good because the prices of houses were going up. But at a minimum, that's total incompetence. But I believe it's worse than that. I believe they knew exactly what was going to happen. And that's the fact that now we're in a position where you're going to see housing prices are going to start falling because interest rates are going up, which means less buyers in the market, less people are going to be able to afford to pay for a house. So the prices are going to drop. So they weren't being honest with us. Finally, they told us inflation had peaked. Well, it hasn't peaked. In fact, it rose again this past month. And when the consumer price index came out, we saw that it had gone up, which means that year over year it had risen again, which prices were already going up last year. So it's risen over that. Now it's like 8.6% year over year. So it's 8.6% above an already high number, which we're all feeling. Every time we go to the gas station, I just got back from a trip from Texas to Memphis for work, and I was shocked at how much I was paying for gas. It was gas $4.78, and I'm down where a lot of the gas is produced, Texas. Prices were ridiculous. 3 months ago, the head of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, he told us they were going to raise interest rates 50 basis points each month this year, and he was confident we were going to get inflation under control. Again, does he know what he's doing? We're only a couple of months from then, and now he's come in yesterday and they raised them not 50 basis points, 75 basis points, which tells you it's worse than what he thought. And he also said two other things that should concern all of us. He said they would raise them 50 to 75 points again next month, which tells you he's very concerned now that it's going to go up even worse as far as inflation. But he also said that he felt confident we could get inflation under control within the next couple of years. All of us, 64% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. 47% of Americans cannot handle it if they get a $1,000 expense that they weren't expecting. That's because prices were already high. Now they're going crazy. And clearly, they don't know what they're doing to get them under control. The dirty secret is, though, folks, that they will not dare tell you. Remember me telling you that we're over $100 trillion in debt? I also told you we only bring in $3.2 trillion a year from federal income taxes. Well, if you want to get inflation under control, you have to raise interest rates above the inflation rate. So if the inflation rate's 8.6%, you're going to have to raise interest rates to 9 or 10%. Well, they can't. There's no way they can do it. Why? Because we owe $31 trillion on national debt right now. Remember, we owe $100 trillion when you include like Medicare, Social Security, veterans benefits, all the things that we promised to the people in our society that have donated, they've given money to Social Security, or they're in need, Medicare, Medicaid, or our veterans who have served us. But just if you look at the national debt, it's almost $31 trillion. So if we raise interest rates to 10% to stop inflation, that means we'll be paying $3.1 trillion a year just for interest on the debt. Well, we only bring in $3.2 trillion from federal income tax. So that would leave $100 billion to pay for Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, food stamps, veterans benefits. In other words, it won't pay for them. That's what they're not telling you. Today, Mr. Kudlow, Larry Kudlow, who was the director of National Economic Council under President Trump, said if you're looking for honest answers from this government, you won't get it. That's a true statement. You will not get it from the people that are standing up there now who told us inflation was transitory when they knew darn well it wasn't. They're also telling us, by the way, let's don't kid ourselves and think that these gas prices going through the roof are by accident. This happened in the previous Democrat administration. If you remember, prices rose to over $4 a gallon under the Obama administration. And they told us that wasn't a bad thing because they want green energy. They want to go to battery-operated cars. The problem with that is, even if we wanted to go to battery-operated cars today, we can't. We don't have the infrastructure to do it. If you're going to go on a trip of any consequence, there's not places for you to stop to recharge your car. They can't do it. Not to mention the fact we don't make enough lithium and other things to make the batteries that we need for the cars. So we couldn't even do it. Anybody that even wanted us to go to green energy should also be producing all the energy that we need currently with fossil fuels, because we have to make it until we can have the infrastructure to go to battery operated cars. The truth is, what we're going through right now is by design. They want all of you in fear that you can't pay your bills so that they can control you. Because if they have you scared, then you'll adopt whatever they hand you because you'll have to. Otherwise, you can't put food on the table for your family. That's what they want. When we're seeing all these food plants around the country, amazingly, that they've been they've burned up in fires. We had planes hit a couple of them. Do you think that's by accident? Today I read an article that all these cows died in Kansas because of heat. Folks, I live in Texas. It's 100 degrees with 100% humidity. The cows aren't dying. This is not happening by accident. They want us in fear so they can control us. So they can push us into what they want us to go into, which is a central bank digital currency. What did I tell you about that? If you agree to that, every single thing you purchase, everything, they'll know it. And if they see you trying to purchase something they don't want, they'll just shut your account down where you can't buy it. I've been telling you about ways to divert from that. If you have things like silver or gold, you can buy what you want to with it. You don't have to answer to anybody. Nobody sees your transaction. It's time for us to realize that our government is failing us. Failing us. We, the people, run this country. And I heard an example that was given on a report that I listened to that said, we need to wake up as a country and realize, just like if you can imagine a big mound of ants that are being controlled by a few grasshoppers. Bear with me on this. They're looking at those grasshoppers and saying, they're big. They're bigger than us. They control us. But the fact is, there's thousands and thousands of ants in that mound. And if they attacked, if they went after those grasshoppers, the truth is they would overrun them. Now, I'm not calling for militant action. I'm talking for people going to, whether it's city council, school boards, writing your congressman, calling your senators, voting to get these people out of here. If we take a stand as a people, we can put down this leadership that is not representing us. Inflation is a tax. When our country was formed, why was it formed? Taxation without representation. That's exactly what we have right now. We have people leading us that are not carrying out what we want. Look at all the things going on right now that none of us agree with. We need to group together and we need to stand up and say, no, not on our watch, because it's not just about us. Our future's in jeopardy. I'm 60 years old. My future is in jeopardy, but what I'm most concerned about is my children and their children. They won't have a future. They won't have any choices. Inflation, as I told you before, when you think about where we're headed, inflation that leads to hyperinflation will lead to currency collapse. That's when this dollar that only has value as long as those using it believe our government will pay its debts. Not just us, but foreign countries. Remember I told you that almost half of every dollar we spend in this country is borrowed money? We're right on the edge of other countries saying, we're not loaning you money. We know you won't pay your debt. Fact is, we can't pay our debt. I told you, we over $100 trillion in commitments that we've made. We can't pay our debt. And right now, with us dealing with inflation and raising our interest rates, we sure will never be able to pay our debt because we're going to struggle to even pay the interest on the debt. So I'm not just going to give you all the bad stuff. I'm going to tell you some practical things that you can do to help fight the situation that we're in. You can use any extra money you have each month, and I know it's tight, but buy things now that you know you're going to use over the next few months. Because folks, prices are going to keep going up. If you use dollars today to buy things you'll use next month and the month after that, you'll be saving money because those prices are going to be going higher. Once you've bought the things that you need for the coming months and you've got the food and stuff stored up that you need, I want you to look at this again. I showed you this in my very first video. This is a picture of the lost buying power of this dollar. 97%, it's actually over that now. It's probably 98% of the buying power of our dollar is gone. You remember me telling you that it takes 29 times more money today, probably 30 times now, more money today than it took in 1913 to buy the same amount of goods. But I also showed you that with gold, and this goes all the way back to 1560, way before our country was formed. If you look at the buying power of gold, it's actually gone up. So what you can do with extra money you have is buy gold and silver. And what you're going to see is as prices go up, you're starting to see it now. The stock market fell a ton today, 700 and something points. But gold and silver went up. That's going to start happening on a much bigger scale. Gold and silver are getting ready to skyrocket. And I've been telling y'all, if you wait too late on this, you're not going to be able to get gold and silver. It's not going to be available. I showed you in a previous video, when you look at, we produce about 900 million ounces of silver each year. And we're using 1.1 billion ounces, which means we're using 200 million ounces more than what we're producing. So if you want to get silver and protect your family or gold, you better do it quickly, because it's not going to be available when this plays out. It won't be available, because the companies that are using it for solar panels and for our military and for refrigerators and every other kind of electric component you can imagine, they're going to buy up the existing silver. You won't be able to get it. There won't be any left over for coins and bars. But I want to take another step that we need to all do, and I'm challenging myself to do this too, and I've already started. You need to call your congressmen and women and your senators, and you need to express your frustration. Because the problem that we have right now, this administration is horrible. I mean, I can't even think of a department in this administration right now that I'd say is doing a good job for us. In fact, they're doing the opposite of what I want them to do, and I know many of you. But this problem wasn't just created in the last year and a half. If I go back, our national debt when George W. Bush took office was only $4 trillion. It's almost $31 trillion today. They have kicked the can down the road till there is no road left. And these congressmen and women that have been sitting in there for 20 or 30 years, and they mouth off about how they're going to do the right thing and they're going to rein in spending. Well, we've got 20 years, 30 years to show that's just not true. They have run us into a position where we are in a desperate state. A country that is not financially sound eventually will not be able to defend itself. I've already told you, when a country has weak leadership, that's when our enemies strike. That's when you see Russia invade Ukraine, or you're going to see China. I'm going to tell you that's going to happen before it happens. They're going to go after Taiwan. You're seeing North Korea's firing missiles. You're going to see a lot more, because they smell weakness here. But we have to speak up. We have to speak up as a country, and we have to say no more. No more of this. And I'm challenging each of y'all to stand up and to call your congressmen and women. And the last thing I would say is vote. Vote these people out and demand that we have free and fair elections. When they stuck in all these voting boxes because of COVID, and we can argue about why did they do that? Did they do it on purpose to be able to cheat in an election? I don't know. But I will say this. We need to be able to know that each person that casts a vote is a U.S. citizen, and each person that casts a vote is registered to vote, and each person that casts a vote is a living person. There's way too many dead people on the roads. It's time that we stand up, because if we don't, some of the blame's on us. It's time that we stand up as citizens and we demand free and fair elections. And I'd say we need to call for term limits. These people that sit in there for 20 or 30 years, you know what they vote for? They vote for whatever will get them elected. They're not voting for what's in the best interest of this country. We need to put an end to these full-time, lifelong congressmen and women. They need to serve a couple of terms, and they need to go back out in business and see what it's like to live under the laws that they're creating. I'm going to tell you up front, I'm not going to apologize for the seriousness of this message, because we are in very serious times. Please like and subscribe to this. Continue to support this program, because I'm going to continue to bring truth to you. Share this with your friends and families. We are all in this together. We need to group together. We need to get this word out. Thank you for your time. Thanks for listening. And I look forward to talking to you on the next podcast.